Thursday.
We got a jam-packed day.
We do have a jam-packed day.
Yeah.
This is another episode of Brew with Two Dudes.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Well, seeing as Luke still got that hangover, hangover guy.
Yeah. So you were telling me about this masterclass, which you started based off an inspiration from Dr. Kara Miller.
Yeah, so Kara Miller was talking about the masterclass deal. And I happened, as is tradition with Google and all these other companies that are basically sifting through all of our information and then presenting us with options to buy shit, all of a sudden I get like an advertisement for this masterclass.
So we talked about it on the podcast, and then it's in your face.
Yeah, well, my phone I don't even think was even in the room, which even makes it more creepy. So the masterclass pops up, and they have a deal where it's like buy one, get one free, or gift one. So I thought, you know what, it'd be really nice, as Kara Miller has, spoken at our events and just been a really, really just valuable asset and just a good friend to the Power Athlete. So I bought the masterclass and I gifted it to Kara Miller as a gift for coming on the podcast and just being a friend of Power Athlete. So she was over the moon, and I started, and I'm watching Doris. Is it Ruth Watson? I can't remember her exactly.
Is that the professor?
She's a presidential historian. Her husband was a speechwriter for LBJ, he was best friends with Kennedy, and then worked for LBJ, and then worked on the Barry Goldwater campaign, and was just this like amazing speechwriter. Like I read a bunch of his speeches. He wrote Bobby Kennedy's South Africa speech, and went through. I mean, he worked on Bobby Kennedy's campaign. He was there when Bobby Kennedy died. And then his wife is this presidential historian on leadership. So it's about 3 hours and 17 minutes, and then there's a workbook and this whole thing. And I was doing programming and writing and everything, just kind of listening to it as background. I finally just got to the point where I stopped everything and just absorbed the stories, her storytelling and how well. I mean, her mastery, and the crazy part is it's not hearsay. All these great leaders wrote journals, and so she has all their historical thing. And it's one of my biggest regrets was that I didn't keep journals at pivotal points in my life, during my NFL career. Because what's hilarious is we'll bring up stuff and I'll remember stories and be like,
"I told you guys.
I told you this." You're like, "No, you've never told us this." What I'm upset is that I didn't write this stuff down. And my dad always told me his good friend was, God, I can't remember the dude's right name right now. It'll come to me in a second. But one of my dad's good friends was the DA on the Charlie Manson case. And every day driving home, he had a tape recorder in his car, and he just dictated. And that's that was the notes that became Helter Skelter, the book.
Oh, wow.
And so my dad always talked about that, as this stuff is happening, the ability just to recount the information, not necessarily review it, but just have your firsthand account, so that all of a sudden the memory becomes fresh. And that was how, I can't remember his name, but that was my dad was in the DA's department with that guy, and just a good friend of his for a long, long time. So, unbelievable. They also have a Gordon Ramsay one, which I'm really excited about.
For how to berate people, or how to cook?
How to cook, but I think I think it might have to do with cooking and leadership and whatnot. I'm excited to watch that one. And there's a few others. There's also Malcolm Gladwell teaches you how to write.
Oh shit, I'm in on that.
Oh, I know. What I want to do is carve out 1 day a week, a 3-hour block for us. The problem with that is Luke will come up with 8,000 reasons why he can't do it because he's so busy all the time. What am I gonna cut?
Yeah.
So what we'll do is, instead of when he's pacing around mouth breathing, we'll just go do it.
Yeah. Ferris Bueller, just put a recorder here of us saying, "No, terrible idea."
No.
Or how about this? So we're just pitching outlandish ideas. So we saw Luke in circles.
But no, so the Malcolm Gladwell one looks really exciting. So I kind of went through in almost like college, and like went through all of them and was like just started
pick your
just
classes?
picking my classes.
Fuck,
And
I do
then,
miss that.
And it's my favorite. And so then I put them all together, and man, that first one, like, absolutely knocked my socks off. Like, and then she has a workbook too, which I'm really excited. Downloaded it, and I want to get into it. But then what's cool too is they have a community where you can go in and discuss it with like your classmates. The fucking masterclass.
Is that productive?
I don't know.
Are people there to battle about the efficacy of like her accuracy on presidents and?
Like, if your late husband was one of like the most prolific speechwriters and worked for all these amazing presidents, and her entire life's work for like the last like 50 plus years, because she was, as a young Harvard student or grad student, she got hired to be like one of the White House press secretary for LBJ, and she got that job, and like a few months before, she had written an article, I forgot what the magazine was for, about like why LBJ was not fit to be president. And then they released it like 2 days after she was in the White House. So she thought she was going to get fired. Instead, LBJ was like, if I can convince this girl that I'm like the president, I can do it, then you know what, I can convince anybody. So he kept her on staff, and he was like worked directly for LBJ.
Yeah.
And she's like, he was the most magical storyteller. I learned later that most of them were lies, but like he was just an incredible
There's
storyteller.
something to the ability to pull in. I imagine a lot of the presidents have that skill.
When they asked me for my feedback, I'd always had this belief that like to sit in that Oval Office, you have to be the best and the brightest and the most dynamic of leaders and individuals. And I've always had this amazing feeling that for some reason history has selected the best people. And not that I've lost faith within the Oval Office, but I don't get that same feeling from like, when we talk about it, we look at these incredible presidents, and I don't know Obama, I'm not sure as hell I don't know Trump. So I don't know what type of storytellers they are. I don't know how their leadership style, because everything's so tinted based on our media. The media before was, about providing the information, and people had opinions and whatnot, but like there's like, I feel like now like there's lenses tinting the information because this is the response that this place wants based on like some deal. So I don't really know how to judge this stuff. And maybe like maybe Trump is the president of the social media era, the tweeting, so we know it's on his mind, the fact that he's always out in front. And I think what he's done is he no longer wants the media to be his voice. Like he doesn't want to be, he doesn't want the media to be the conduit.
Interpreted, yeah.
Yeah, like he doesn't want to be the conduit. So he's going to put himself front and center and say, but I don't know, maybe the American people are so fucking brain dead now that they need the Dunning-Kruger effect. They need somebody to stand up there and just, I'm the greatest, I'm the smartest, I know more than everybody about
better
everything.
Than you, and I know it.
I mean, it was really, man, I like that one class, like sold me. And like, cause like we've always talked about, man, like here I am, 40 something years old, and like really, and you guys have heard me say on the podcast, the fact that I had to go to college at 18 to 22, while it was an amazing experience and helped shape me, like the college experience I would have now as an adult and father, and having worked in this, if I got a chance to go back and you're like, you're gonna have to go back to Berkeley for 4 years, John, I'd be like, I guess we'll go. And you know what, we're gonna suck the marrow out of this thing. As a student athlete, just trying to play football, survive, have a social life, and do all these things, I think you shortchange it. Now here at this point, I'd be like, it's Friday night, what are we doing? Is there a study group I can go talk about this stuff? Maybe have a beer. We'll talk, like it just, I just think that, they would say youth is wasted on the youth, on the young.
Yeah.
But this class is really exciting. The ability to be able to sit, because it really reminded me of Ken Jowett, who was my professor, one of my poli-sci professors. He was Reagan's advisor to Russia.
Oh, shit.
And so his whole class was like telling these amazing stories of sitting in the Oval Office with Ronald Reagan. He told us the story of how they came up with the whole Star Wars thing as a way to catfish the Russians.
You have told us this one.
Oh, like his class, you had to be 5 minutes early. because at time they locked the doors, you weren't coming in, and like there wasn't a single seat vacant in this class because people from other classes, like if you were walking by and Ken Jao was speaking, people just came and sat down because he was going to tell you this amazing story that was part of history, and he was so just prickly. I mean, like just cunty if people were like, if they were late, if they were rude, and just so matter of fact. He was an incredible speaker. And I ended up becoming friends with him because I'd go to his office hours. I remember we had like 4 or 5 office hours where we discussed McCarthyism. And I was fascinated by McCarthyism. I mean, the Red Scare. I mean, I think the coronavirus and what's happening in this country now is like this generation, this part of this period of time's Red Scare with fear of the unknown, and like there's Nazis everywhere, and Russian sympathizers, and communists are here, and we got to like root them out. And I think like that whole silent fear of the unknown, and there's people that are providing correct information and wrong in this. I think this fear is kind of our Red Scare, and our I mean, I don't know who Joseph McCarthy is yet.
We don't have that finger pointing villain. We don't have the Thanos to rally around and against.
The crazy part though, and this information didn't come out till years later, but when all of a sudden the Freedom of Information Act came out and people started requesting stuff, they found that McCarthy actually wasn't a kook. That a lot of the stuff that he was doing and everything was accurate, that there were Russian people being paid, or Russians were paying money, and I think there's a book about it, about like they went back and they realized that the Red Scare and everything just wasn't fabricated. So I mean, the idea originally was that, hey, Joseph McCarthy and his group got together and used it and weaponized this ability to say, hey, you're a communist sympathizer, you're a Soviet plant, and I guess like it wasn't all that far off. So, but the interesting thing about history is history judges all, whether or not you want it or not. So the farther you get away from an event, the more analysis you have. So I'm really fascinated to see like how the history books and how we remember this event in this period in our time 20 years from now.
Yeah, and we have more, I guess, media to judge. You're captured on not only your spoken word. I imagine a president was only the information is when they were standing in front of a reporter or people and they're capturing what they have to say. Now we have all these different outlets to then take into consideration, to think about, and then write 30 years from now about who this people.
Well, and think of the quality of the video. We'll watch the video and it'll look like it is, I mean, like you're watching these video clips of like, these pictures of LBJ and they're black and white and it's awful. It's cool to watch because like all the girls are dressed in kind of like the 60s, skirts and boots and like the whole thing, and you can see the guys all in their, really nice kind of like Mad Men suits. Pretty amazing. The one thing I really took away was that the presidential leaders that she looked at for those 4, there was one thing that was universal to them all: incredible storytellers. Every one of them. Teddy Roosevelt. She talked about how Teddy Roosevelt's, how he grew up, and more importantly, he lost like his wife in childbirth, like the same day he lost his mother to typhoid, who went in to help his wife. So I mean, like, and then he like freaks out and goes out into the wilderness and goes out into the into the fray. Just really amazing. But her talking about like Teddy Roosevelt is this like indominant figure, and then probably the smartest, most gentle and genuine man to ever sit in the presidency was Abraham Lincoln. Just like, if you guys have the opportunity, go check out the masterclass. Like like just off of that first class, like I am so excited for the next one. So I want to try to like carve out some time to do it. And what else did I do yesterday? I read like 10 books to my son. What else? I've been doing the RPR on him twice a day. So Cal Dietz is in JL Holdworth created this thing called Restoration Postural Reset. And so I've been doing the RPR on him, and I asked him, and like, who knows with a 4-year-old, but I'm like, do you feel better? He's like, yeah, I think I sleep better. And I was like, sounds good. So we've been doing that. And then for training, what do we got? today? Oh, I got hit a bunch of bamboo bar upper.
I'll get down on that as extra.
Cool.
Field Trunk GPP for French contrast cycle building up. Yesterday was a 30-minute, or not 30 minutes, it took me 30 minutes, 300 calorie on that Echo bike.
Oh, you got 300 on the Echo bike in 30?
Yeah.
That's fast.
Well, it felt like a fucking lifetime.
For a out of shape Hobbit. Hobbit.
Schlobbit.
300 calories in 30 minutes is kind of an easy ride. Like that's almost like I don't even break the sweat on that.
Sounds about right. I was dying, but then
yeah, but the thing about it, and I have an unfair advantage on the Echo bike and the road bikes.
Oh.
Or because I'm taller, that the arms are down. Whereas I think for you guys the arms are here, so it's harder. Whereas I can kind of leverage them, and I feel like I can ride faster.
Yeah, no leverage. What's the opposite of leverage?
So I rode for 45 minutes yesterday, and I think I got like 385 calories. So yeah, it was a nice ride. I listened to Joe Rogan and Elon Musk.
Oh God.
So that was an interesting one.
He's
so he was
a super villain.
He was talking about this deal with neural implants. That what they're going to do is they're going to basically core a 1-inch hole in your head, and then they're going to put an implant in with electrodes and then cover it back up. And that electrode is going to ramp up your intelligence to like an obscene level. And actually, they expect him, like he's like the expectation is that people that have neural implants will be able to have nonverbal communication. So
we could sit here
and just. The problem though is that if somebody can read your mind, like how much.
How do I switch?
How much? Well, that's my thing. How much inner dialogue do we have? Like, do you really want to read people's minds? Do you really want? No, I don't.
Have you seen what women want? No way I want in there.
Yeah, no way, no way. I mean, like I know in Callie's mind, it just looked like a rat running around on a wheel really, really fast with like a little kitten following it. But I don't want to see that.
Yeah, no amount. Like even LASIK eye surgery, I'm out.
LASIK eye surgery was probably the best thing I ever did in my life. It was, hands down. I got poked in the eye and a contact came out and I had to come out of the game and I was like, fuck this. And then the team was like, you need to get laser eye surgery. I'm like, okay. So I got laser eye surgery. Greatest thing ever happened to me. Greatest improvement. Now, neural implant? I don't think so.
Like, okay, so how many people is it going to take for them to actually get this procedure correct and have it just be routine?
I bet you Elon Musk already has it.
You think?
Yeah. 100%. As he's talking about it and the electrodes and the whole thing, I'm like, wouldn't it make sense that he would have, because he's like, he can ramp up your intelligence like exponentially, and like he kind of went through all these things, and I'm like, maybe he already had it, he's just not telling everybody. Because like, what if you had that tech, and you're like, you could be smarter, you could be orders of magnitude better, all these things.
He's a Bond villain.
He is. I think he already has it, and he's on there with Rogan, trying to convince Rogan to do it.
To then convince all of us
to do it.
To listen.
And next thing you know, we all have implants and we're all doing what Elon Musk wants us to. Like it feels like there's just too much chance of hacking into that like there's going to be some
like a president,
like some 13-year-old hacker kids at home and he's like, "Oh, there's a hole in the defenses. Hold on, let me take control of Chris McQuilkin and just make him urinate on himself all day."
No change there. But yeah, no way. And like a president has it, and then there's some plot.
Well, then there would be another plot for what is it? Something Falls. What are those terrible?
Terrible. Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler's
amazing
collection of is it Atlas?
President saving? Well, we got Olympus has fallen. We got London has fallen. And we have Angel has fallen.
I forgot about that.
He's Angel.
The trilogy.
So, dude,
So when somebody refers to the trilogy, do you refer back to those movies, or do you go Lord of the Rings?
Oh, the Fallen trilogy, yeah.
Yeah, the Fallen.
Oh, what are you, a Star Wars guy?
No, I'm a Lord of the Rings. If somebody says the trilogy to me, I think Lord of the Rings.
Interesting.
I'm
Complete end of the world.
I am a Lord of the Rings fan. I've read Tolkien's books. I've seen the movie. Talk about like digging in, like over this coronavirus.
So
like,
what
8
point?
weeks? You probably could have just read The Hobbit. Like The Hobbit took me probably like months.
No way.
It's so long and it's so dense. Like I had to start taking notes because I couldn't remember the names.
So like, yeah, I'd be lost. But the movies came out. I don't remember when the movies came out. But did you read the books before the movies, or did the movies inspire you to go and read the books?
I read the books. I read The Hobbit as a kid, and I actually read the books.
I saw them all in the theater, but I've only seen them that one time. Like I haven't gone back and.
Man, I remember one time. This is when my wife was pregnant with the twins. We went and worked out at CrossFit Balboa, and we came home. Like I think we worked out pretty early, like 8:30. Came home at like 10 o'clock. I remember this is when we lived at the beach house, and we were like, I decided just to sit down, throw on the TV, and it's the opening scene of like the Fellowship of the Rings. And like she had never seen it, so we sat down, and it was all 3 movies back to back.
On like TNT?
On TNT.
Yeah.
So we watched all 3 movies. We ordered lunch, had like lunch delivered and dinner delivered, and we just hung out on the couch. It was probably our greatest day. Like, I don't think my wife has ever sat still like that ever since we've had kids. So like, I remember that. I was like, remember that day? We didn't really do anything. We just watched those 3 movies. That was our greatest day.
This sounds great.
It was great. I can't ever remember my wife sitting down for that long. She's like not the type to like lounge. Nope. Always something to do. Remember, like fucking busybody.
I'll tell you what I haven't seen. I know they made extended like director's cuts. Like the movie's already 3 hours, but then they made like 4 or 5 hour ones.
Sounds amazing.
Fuck. But we did go to Hobbit Town.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
That was pretty fucking hilarious.
We were in New Zealand and decided to go to Hobbit Town. What I'm a little upset by is we were in the North Island. If we'd gone to South Island, we could have seen like Isengard. We could have seen Helm's Deep. I mean, we could have seen all those bitchin'. They still
Go
have.
back.
I guess we got to go back.
Oh, yeah, that was great. Teaching the seminar.
That was a long flight to New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, I did that in a 2-week swing because I flew to Sydney and taught one with Luke and just hung around for a week, and then you met me in New Zealand.
Yeah, that was a long flight.
Yeah, I had a few of those 2-week abroad trips, so it was pretty awesome. Like back to back seminar in Rome into Germany. It's probably my favorite swing because it was just kick it in Rome for a week and then go to Oktoberfest.
What a great job. What a great job.
Yeah. Speaking of GPP, since we taught the sports-specific application of general physical preparedness.
No, I think we were teaching sport-specific application for sport, for weight training.
Oh, no. I'm thinking SPP. What do we call it? Ass backwards stood for...
SSA?
SSA. Yeah, sports-specific application. That's what it said, right?
Yeah, SSA. Sport-specific application.
For the sport of GPP.
No, well, it's not the sport of GPP, but the idea of increased work capacity, broad time, or modal domains is fitness. Yeah, I don't really know what we're doing. As I've reflected back, I wonder if history will judge us in that one. I don't really know what we were doing. All I know was I felt like there was a burning building, and we were running in trying to pull out as many people as we can by teaching them that like strength training is just the practice. There has to be something on top of it as a goal. Like, what are you training for? And I think the reason, and while I know Harry hated that tagline, the tagline was really born from the seminar where people, would come up with these grandiose plans that they were looking for me to like sign off on. And I was like, great. Why are you doing this? Like, what are you training for? Like, what's the reasoning? Like, do you have a purpose? And they were like, win the CrossFit Games, Secret Squirrel. Like people just, they had these kind of like grandiose ideas of these master plans they were going to create, but yet there was no end game. Because, and then like my favorite was, well, I'm training for the unknown and unknowable. And I'm like, okay.
Cool. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really open-ended. So, and then I'm like, okay, well then, what about like if there's a 5K run, got that. What if there's a 600-pound deadlift at the end and you can't step across the 5K until you deadlift the 600? Can't do that. Who could deadlift that and do that? I'm like, well, that's unknown and unknowable. So like just these little questions, man. People had this really just interesting thing. I mean, but the history of it's even more interesting. So early on, when CrossFit was going on and they were kind of working through their definitions, what they were doing, it was Rob Wolf that was like, this is kind of like what the West Side guys do with GPP. And Glassman latched onto that. I don't necessarily know if at the time he had researched it, knew what Rob was talking about. But then he globs on and like they kind of sport like, yeah, we're training for GPP. And which I thought was always funny because you don't train for GPP. The GPP is what you develop for the training. And it's the general physical preparedness that you develop for your training so that you can stack it on top of something like sport-specific training. So anything we do within the confines of a weight room is GPP. What we do out on the field or the pitch or the ice, that becomes our SPP. And so I think it was just telephone.
Dangerous game. I'm
Dangerous
sure history has shown
Yeah.
the negative effects of telephone.
Yeah, so telephone.
So the second half of Brew for the crew, after we talk nothing about nothing, is we answer a specific question from the audience, and this comes from Instagram, and great name, Shot of Jameson
Oh,
is the handle.
nice.
So he asked us for our favorite.
I guess J-Mo was taken.
I guess so. Favorite benchmark workouts for assessing general physical preparedness.
Oh man, the fact that you're looking for GPP workouts to assess GPP doesn't make sense. The assessment for whether or not the GPP was successful should be the training. Like, so
Explain.
Well, so GPP is the base. Like you're laying your foundation. That's like saying like, oh, did the foundation that we poured, did it survive? Well, yeah, it was fine. We didn't build anything on there. But then all of a sudden you build a house, you build a building, and the foundation cracks, and we knew that the foundation wasn't solid. So without building something on top of that platform, we have no way of testing it. So for example, like we're doing, our version of French contrast, which is really just another extension of what we do with the PAP, the post-activation potentiation. So we're doing that for Field Strong. We have these GPP blocks, but the only way that we know that the GPP block was successful is that when you go into the actual training program, like the French contrast, are you able to do things better? Is the quality of the movement, or do you get stronger? Are all the effects that we're looking to extract from the training program, does it happen the way we think it is?
Is the specific adaptation targeted, accomplished?
Yeah. And the only way we found with that program, because it's such high volume and it's so neurally demanding, is that the higher your level of conditioning is, the better it works. Like I think my wife went in and smashed. We did her in just a 6-week block instead of breaking it up because her conditioning was so high. Then she came in and was able to smash it, right? But that was one thing that was in the weight room. But then she saw it translate into her sport, which is jumping horses. And all of a sudden she's stronger in the saddle. She's more efficient. She's able to control the horse better. And she just feels more rooted and more, just stronger, more dense, put on weight, solid, like the whole deal. All of that becomes, so then as we look back, she has this practical kind of measuring stick, almost this looking glass to be like, I'm like, well, what'd you think? She's like, well, because my conditioning was high, I felt like I could recover and do more work and be more successful with the quality of the work that was done with this. Take it a step further, all of a sudden I'm out there, jumping, riding horses and doing stuff I do, and I felt better and I was better. They commented, you've really grown, you're so much stronger in the saddle, it just looks better. And I think like for her, she saw like, okay, so the level of conditioning allowed me to be able to do the program the way it was intended with the highest amount of quality, and then that work allowed me to step over. Now, if she had done the program without a high level of conditioning, she wouldn't have seen the carryover the way that she saw it. So I think like without a measuring stick, without some form of SVP and some actual specific application of it. I don't know if you can measure GPP, because we can throw in these workouts and you're like, 30 kettlebell swings for, on the minute, every other minute. I was able to do it, now I can't. Okay, that's great. Those are benchmarks for that. But how is that helping you do your job better? Mm-hmm. Like how many guys have we had who are law enforcement, firefighters, or different, actual deals saying, I did this training and a dude took off sprinting. I was able to hawk him down, open field tackle him, wrestle him to the ground. And, I was able to do my job. This training allowed me to be the best version of myself and for me to succeed in my, most trying hour. Like, that's what I want to see. Not like, oh, bro, I did quarter gone bad and I was able to get one more rep. Like, okay. I know dudes that fucking crushed the conditioning test and got cut the next day. I knew dudes that failed conditioning tests and fucking were all pros. So, like, I don't get as wrapped around the axles about this stuff. What I'm really excited about is, like, I want to hear the successes. I want to hear how the training was used. The training is the training. The application, like, that's the stuff that I'm excited about. Like, the training is the vehicle. The problem is for a lot of people, how they compete and really their really only outlet is the training. And not to poo-hoo that, because, we're kind of in that same deal, especially. But I think there has to be something greater than just going to the gym, fucking setting yourself on fire every day. And I think you have to, just for mental health, you have to select something and that's why I always thought all the Spartan races were great. Yeah. Like the amount of people that have periodized our programming for hunting. We just had a guy the other day hit us up that does these crazy, mountain climbing and uses grindstone as his off-season training, and then he gets into his mountaineering specific stuff. And the conditioning they develop on grindstone allows him to do better version. So that's the stuff I get excited about. I'm not necessarily, too romanced with the actual day-to-day, more so the body of work. The amount of video that we get of people in Third Monkey who are just smashing cinder blocks and doing shit, awesome, in these austere locations, I love it, because what that's doing is that's training them, and this is their outlet for mental health, for just community acceptance, how to break up this fucking nonsense. And if the training is about surviving this period of time and developing community identity, what are you training for? I'm in on that.
There's nothing wrong with training to train, but when it gets into training for the test, this is where we can say you're missing the forest for the trees. Yeah. If the leaderboard and the scoreboard becomes the end-all be-all versus the diving in and improving your ability to execute the warm-up movements, then, okay, if you care more about the leaderboard than improving your execution. Well,
that's where, too, people get all wrapped around the axle and all fucking pissed off if, somebody, either bullshits the leaderboard or makes a mistake. And I'm like, what do you care? I get the whole honesty deal. People make mistakes, and there's times all the time to be like, dude, I was super fucking fatigued. I just hit the wrong button, then they'll go back and fix it. On Hammer, it was funny yesterday. TC missed a typo of mine where I missed a period, so they were doing 2 1.5 mile repeats. So I even write in the description, hey, we're gonna do 2.5 mile repeats. And so in the box it was 1.5 and the next one was 15. And they were like, oh, is this a typo? And people were losing their minds. And I'm like, you fucking drama queens, settle down. I was like, I just
drama queens and Hammer, sounds about right.
Oh my God. Fucking drama queens. And I even was like, yo, I put it in the instructions. My proofreader missed a period, and you know what? I'm gonna land-based TC on that. If you're listening to TC, you missed that one, so I had to go fix it.
This comes from Charlie Francis' book. One of my favorite conditioning stories. It goes to hockey. So during the Cold War, Russia hockey was just the greatest team within.
Yeah, sure.
And then we have the Miracle on Ice. We got the Legend, but within that 70s through the 80s period during that Cold War, people's only exposure to Russia were these hockey athletes and other sport athletes. So then Canada, who was the former powerhouse of hockey, lacrosse is actually their national sport, fun fact, but hockey is, when I think Canada, I think hockey.
Sure.
So then Canada plays Russia and gets their dicks kicked in. So they're thinking, all right, they skated through the 3 periods. We need to get in better shape. We need to improve our VO2 max. So then they're all right. For the 4 years between the Olympics, they're hammering their VO2 max and set all kinds of records within that. And then guess what happens? Canada, all right, we're in the best shape of any athletes within our whole Olympic organization. They go in and play Russia. What do you think happens?
They get their dicks kicked
They get
in.
their dicks kicked in again. So finally, when the Cold War's over and we were able to go in and see exactly like the training and the records of the Russian, they showed the VO2 max, and I'd have to look it up, like the difference. But Canada had well above the VO2 max than the Russians did. But the difference, the training that the skaters were going into, it was all based on speed and replication of speed. So they were focusing, all right, we're on the ice for 30 seconds. We are going as fast as we frickin' can. So the training was evolved around decreasing your recovery time between your maximal velocity. Not like top end speed, but as fast as you can go in that moment, which is sport.
So, but it comes down to replication of speed.
Exactly.
I mean, what we talk about on the hammer stuff, like I need you to recover long enough, or I need you to take enough recovery to be able to run over 92%, let's say. The problem is you know, that's completely dictated on how much conditioning you've done, how good a shape you were in. So the replication of speed, like if you can only run, and I remember we were training with Roth and all those Olympic runners from down there, they would rest 10 minutes in between sets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they weren't standing around, but they were like kind of moving and like kind of doing a dynamic warm up and walking and just like staying loose, staying set up, and then they would be fully recovered and they would go. And what would decrease over time is as their conditioning and their ability to replicate speed increased, then they could decrease the conditioning. I always thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. So I got it here. It's the Canadas. They were 10 points higher on a VO2 max than the Russians, and still couldn't compete. Crazy. Final note with train. I would go to warm-ups, and a discovery that I made as a coach and a fuck up was going to CrossFit football and seeing the value within these movements and warm-ups. And when you're exposed to dead bugs, the pillar series, the lunge rotations.
Well, yeah, we didn't put any of that in the online program.
Right.
So you had to come to the CrossFit football to actually get the rubric to understand how to use the entire program.
And your first exposure to that,
yeah,
fuck it, nothing replicates it. You get your ass handed to you.
Well, and that was my favorite part, because people be like, well, you give away the program free. Why do I got to go show up at the seminar? And I'm like, we don't give the program free. We give you we just give you some workouts, but like the true magic happens at the seminar.
Yeah.
So I always think for people that didn't get a chance to go, you missed out. That was fucking epic.
It was. So you got the strength and the conditioning, but not the strength and conditioning program.
Yeah.
But taking these tools and getting my ass kicked because I thought I was strong and in shape, and then bringing it back to my athletes, I created just a dynamic warm-up. So 10 minutes we're going to hit before practice. And I saw this, handed the kids the warm-up. This is our warm-up. So their first time ever doing it, fucking sweating balls, and it was hot. Like it was in January, and they're still like dying, sweating during this dynamic warm-up. And it was the warm-up, and over the course of the season, just the preparedness for practice and game day, I saw it decrease in almost throughout the season. It's not that we were getting worse, we were getting in better shape, but then our first quarter was getting worse because we weren't firing all cylinders. So like an observation where I fucked up was the not evolving the movements and the preparation. So they were getting generally physically prepared through the warm-up, plus the sport itself is conditioning, and then just the effectiveness of increasing their athleticism had failed. So nobody was getting hurt, but it was just like the spry thing. So what I'm getting at is now a big thing within youth sports, especially girls soccer, is the FIFA 11. So it's a 20-minute warm-up that they're saying, hey, do this warm-up before your girls soccer practice and games. It's going to put them in a position to prevent injury, ACL injuries.
Sure.
So the first exposure to this warm-up, these girls, it's going to do its job.
Sure.
But the more they do it, their GPP will actually decrease because of this. So this is like the difference in understanding physical preparation
Well,
and then athleticism
it has to-
evolving.
It has to have like a tiered deal.
Exactly.
Like if you start with 11, what does it look like? Can you jump them? Can you change the orders? Because you can continue to drive adaptation by just changing little things like volume and intensity, order,
Orientation.
orientation, movement. Like you do everything sagittal, you can do everything frontal. I mean, so it just comes down to being creative. And I think people lack that, and they just want to just baby bird.
Which,
We can hear all of our baby birds outside.
yeah, and we have a solution. So within our ACL injury prevention online course, it is in line with the themes and the goals of that FIFA 11, but at the same time, how you can tweak and adapt it so you're continuing to progress and accomplish the goal of increasing your preparedness and maintaining that level throughout season and keeping your girls safe. So I'm not mad at it, but at the same time, just from experience and application, the purpose, they're going to lose it throughout. But it's the tools to hand off to a sport coach to say, hey, do this shit to protect your girls, which it will until it doesn't.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. So GPP covered best examples of our favorite GPP workouts are probably found on our free program, Third Monkey. So if you want to check out those examples and how we're getting creative with minimal equipment,
Or check out Johnny Wad, and then you get the fucking flamethrower on you.
yeah. So
Right now we're in the middle of the Johnny D, the Volume 2, the remix cycle. It's fucking coming in hot. It's good.
I would expect nothing less.
As I was finishing it up, putting the final touches, I decided to just randomly select from my grab bag of fucking disgustingly named awful workouts. And all of a sudden, as that grab bag came out, I thought, oh man, religion, it's coming for you.
Oh God.
So yeah, I was like, you know what? We haven't done religion in a while. Let's bring that one back. One of my favorite workouts.
In the Brew Crew where we talk CrossFit football, like an hour later, Luke and I were sitting here eating breakfast and we're like, forgot religion.
We did forget religion.
So why is it called religion, John?
So we had a deal. It was at the time it was max reps at 315. I think we've scaled it since then. But I did max reps at 315, and I think in like the third or fourth set, I felt like somebody kept kind of tapping me on the back of the head, and I was like, finally, was like, dude, stop fucking tapping me. And they're like, nobody's tapping me, and nobody was tapping me. Nobody was near me. And so the joke was that Jesus was trying to work in. So he was tapping me on the shoulder, being like, hey, it's my set. And so that was where the joke for religion came from, that it felt like they were like, who's tapping you on the shoulder? I was like, it was Jesus trying to work in on the set. So like, hey bro, I got this, move over, and that's how they got the name religion.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, from the crew,
Here's to you.
here's to you.
Here's to you. Oh, and we got any announcements or anything?
If you want to learn more about French contrast, we got an article up on our blog, powerathletehq.com
And
/blog.
what else?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know. Well, here's to you.
Here's to you.
Have a good day.